So, hi, my name is Sim. Thank you so much for joining our Female Voices series today. Could you please start us off with a bit about your career journey and your learnings to date? And for those who don't actually understand what a data scientist does, could you please grace us with a short explanation?
Yes, and thanks for having me. And I will introduce myself. I'm Samantha. I am currently based in Amsterdam, but I originally come from a small country in Africa called Malawi. So I grew up and I was raised there, but when I was 16, I moved to South Africa, a country which really became my home. I studied in South Africa. I initially entered varsity like with the view that I was going to become an aerospace engineer. But when I got into university, I got a little bit more educated on the stuff that I loved, things that I enjoyed, different career paths based on the community that I was surrounded by. So then I decided to take the path to become an industrial engineer, and that's what I graduated in. And I started my career with one of the big four consulting companies called EY. So I was a management consultant, I guess, for the first 4 or 5 years of my career. And at EY, that's when I really got into data science. I became a supply chain analyst. I did data science competitions. I started already learning to program while I was there in my own spare time. That time I was still using like Microsoft Excel. But then learning R programming was like my route to really becoming a data scientist and kind of a little bit self-taught. But later on, as I saw that I wanted to get like a full data science job, I had to then do a master's at UCT, and that really led to the opportunity that I have today working as a senior data science tech lead at Kantar. And you did ask, like, what is a data scientist and what does a data scientist do? You would hear like many different definitions from different people, which is like wild because the field is pretty new. I think it really just started existing around like 2012 or 2014. And it's really derived from like where computer science meets data analysis. But the way I see it, it's more about using, following a scientific approach in inform making decisions about data and building like data products that can predict the future or in a more intelligent way kind of and analyze the big data information that we have using like advanced methodologies. So the requirements for like from a traditional like statistician or traditional data analyst with data science, you also need to know like proper programming, like really good, some even to the point where you have to also know some software engineering skills. You have to know some mathematics. You have to know a lot about the business as well, domain knowledge, stakeholder communication and statistics. So it's a little bit more involved from a day-to-day job as a data analyst. And I really loved it because it showed like the promise of solving complex stuff that couldn't be solved before traditional data. And now like there was new stuff, like more complicated applications like being solved with data science. Like we see like language translation now, like how seamless it is. Like on your Google app, you can see how well language is being translated, speech to text, computer vision, all of that stuff. It would not be possible without like data science and big data. Yeah, so that is a little bit of summary of my background and what data science is.
No, thank you for sharing. That's really, really interesting. And also it's incredible that you've like moved around as well. So you said that you're in Amsterdam now as well, which must be lovely, but also
Yes.
cold at this time. It's freezing here in the UK, so I can imagine it's somewhat similar.
Yes.
But yeah, no, that's amazing. It sounds like there's so many layers to being a data scientist. Like you said, you have to know about the company and you have to have different elements and different skills to keep your skills afloat and relevant, which is amazing. So could you maybe share with us what it's like to work in a day in the life of a data scientist? What do you have to do?
Okay, so I would obviously speak in the context of where I work as a market research data scientist, also a lot on NLP, which is natural language processing. Um, and my day in the life would would always depend, like whether I'm working on a new project or maintaining some existing applications. So I would pretty much involves coming into work, having a little bit of a coffee chat with the team, or you sometimes just speak high level with your manager, what your plans for today are, what you're going to be working on. Usually you have a couple of projects that you're already working on, and these different projects will vary. In my workspace, the projects would either be, you'd have an R&D project, which is a way that you're trying to explore new ways of using the data that we have in organization. The other one would be like an operational type project, which is like improving or automating some form of business process in the organization, whether it's data retrieval, data exploration, using maybe most of the time we use like unsupervised methods and stuff, but that was another I guess another line. The other one would be, let's say, already products and solutions that have been approved, and you are now working on that, and you're working with a product owner, you're working with data engineers, you're working with teams to actually get that into production. Sometimes it's already in production and you are just monitoring its performance in production, or you are fixing some bugs, troubleshooting. Yeah, and the other part also just involves managing ad hoc requests that you could be getting from different parts of the organization, and being able to communicate to stakeholders that how you plan on doing it, or prioritizing it, how you add it to the backlog. And that part could be really challenging as well, because you have to learn to push back on stuff, or be able to identify what is useful and what isn't useful, and try to not burn your bridges in the organization as well. So that it's quite interesting. And I think when I became a tech lead, I guess I evolved from senior data scientist to tech lead. And in that space, I then do also some mentoring with people in the organization. What I mean mentoring is also providing a little bit guidance to the data science in our teams. We have data scientists that probably just coming from university and have not had the experience of how to create a product that is production ready. So I would guide them and mentor them on how to do that and how to deploy it on our platform. And yeah, so that's one of the biggest things that I do now, even with working with product owners, and how new ideas and how they can be put onto our platform as well.
Amazing. Thank you. I mean, it sounds really, really diverse and really versatile. So every day is very much different. I mean, in your own experience, did you find that there was quite a big jump from being data scientist to tech lead?
Yes, I think there was a big jump. So I think as a senior data scientist, I was really involved in the programming every day. Like it really felt like I was doing a lot of programming, a lot of research, learning a lot about new tech, refactoring code and things. But as a tech lead, and I was really focused more on like the application itself. As a tech lead, I find that I'm really focused a lot on the engineering and infrastructure side of data science. So I had to kind of pick up more skills, like not just like the stats and the model building and the business skills, but also like software engineering skills, learning more about Docker, learning more about scaling, learning more about clusters, learning more about the cloud. And that stuff was so different and was so new to me. But you start to realize that the more you grow in the data science field, the more this stuff or this knowledge becomes very important, because it's part of like making things work. Like you can't just be R&Ding or building stuff in Jupyter notebooks. You have to add business value. And how do you add business value? You have to look at the infrastructure side. You have to learn how to monitor things in production. And that knowledge to me was really interesting. And it was like, I guess it was harder to learn, because the knowledge that of a data scientist I learned already at university. So when I came in, I thought it was much more like, I guess, seamless. Well, with this one, I had to like really rely a lot on practicing and going to learning from like my other developers. And it was new to a lot of people. So a lot of companies, a lot of people, like data science in production is something that was very new. So everybody was doing it in their own way. So it was like a really interesting learning. And I'm kind of happy that I took that route, because right now you understand the whole life cycle. And it's easy to now speak to stakeholders to know when something can be done, or how long it's going to take, and all of the different like obstacles you could potentially face in terms of data security, personal information, all of that stuff. So
thank you. That's really, really cool. I think, like you said, we learn so much throughout education or through courses and even on the job sometimes. But whenever you enter a new working environment, it's inevitably going to be different and you're going to have to adapt. But it looks like you've done it phenomenally. So well done to you.
thanks.
So that I know you've touched on the fact that you studied at university and that's what helped you to sort of decide what direction you would like to go in. So was there anything aside from that that made you decide to enter the field, and how did you go about it once you finished university, finding that right opportunity? Because it's such a niche industry, such a niche role to have and career. And of course, the whole premise of our Female Voices series touches on the fact of women in STEM who haven't had the opportunity to maybe vocalize their experience or feel discouraged from joining a vocation that they are interested in. So was there any point where you felt that your experience as a female has molded your opportunities in data science?
So I remember at the beginning of this call, I remember I told you I started off as a mechanical engineer. And when I went to work in the field as mechanical engineering, and I just saw it was, oh man, and how it was scary. And when I like in my third year of mechanical engineering, I was the only female in my class. The other females that I started with were either like still completing some of the modules, and it felt very lonely. So when I switched to industrial engineering, part of the decision was also because of the loneliness I felt as a female in a mechanical engineering class that only had males. When I went to switch to industrial engineering, there was more females. I got to do projects with, my teams were mostly females. I had a good friend of mine, my partner in crime. We saw the degree through together. And I think having her around really empowered me to really like finish and really to be much stronger as well. And to kind of like, we learned from each other to kind of be strong in this field, like two women taking on the world. And I think that really helped. And you know, many people say that, no, it's sometimes we're delusional that not being empowered or being only in a male, it's like we do need that empowerment as females. Like we do need like familiar faces in our classes. I thought that it really helped me. It really molded to completing my degree, my qualification, and in the workspace as well. When I entered my master's in data science, when I got into, I think it was like orientation week, the first day, I looked around and was like, oh my goodness, I'm like the only female in this class. But I think I was a little bit more mature. I had grown a little bit more in confidence, and I knew that I could take on this course and finish it because I was already in that type of environment, university, and I kind of developed the skin to do that. So when I did the master's in data science, I did graduate as I think I was the only female in my class as well. But I learned how to like be in that type of environment and kind of survive. But when I entered the field as well, you realize that you need the community and you need people. And I think after 2 years of working as a data scientist, I reached out more to the community, to like the Our Ladies community. I found some friends online, found more women in tech communities and sort of leaned on them. And that's really helped a lot with motivating me in this industry, because it really doesn't get a lot easier. You get into management and senior positions as well, and it gets a different level of hard that you need to prepare yourself for. But I think being motivated to that, I really enjoy what I do and I love my career and I love the work that I do and its promise and the opportunities it's given me. So that also helps, just enjoying what you do. But really having friends and sisters and community outside of work has really helped. In some cases, like our organization is starting like ERGs, like enterprise resource groups, where you could find like other women in tech in your company that you can talk to and share stories with. And that also is quite a good idea.
I absolutely adore the fact that there are so many communities and groups that are forming within the industry that are there to support, because obviously it's no secret that for a long time women weren't necessarily
Mm.
encouraged to join STEM careers. So now
Yeah.
the fact that there are people and they're forming a community to encourage and support each other is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love it. And it's nothing to say that it's even only women that are joining it. There would also in some cases be male supporters who are
Yes.
championing other women to join, which is phenomenal.
And
And
we need that actually.
yeah, absolutely. And kudos to you, because I know it takes a lot of courage to sort of step into a room where you're the only person of some shape or form. For some people, it may be gender, it could be sexuality, race, ethnicity. It could be absolutely anything. But of course, our series is touching particularly on female experience. And
Yeah.
I know that it must take a lot to sort of keep encouraging yourself to keep pushing on. So it's amazing. And thank you for sharing that with us, because hopefully it will touch somebody else as well who watches it.
Yeah, I hope so. And I really hope many women don't give up in this field. Like I've seen when I was studying data science, there was another female, but she gave up like I think just after a couple of weeks. And and it was really sad because when I was finished, I kind of realized how awesome like the opportunities came after I finished my degree, and it was really, yeah. So it's really sad to see other women dropping out of the field because of just um, imposter syndrome, or not feeling good enough, or not feeling empowered enough to carry on, or not seeing that it might be worth it for them. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's amazing that you have made it to the point you have. But that's not to say it came easy. You, of course,
Mm.
worked really hard, and I'm sure you had to combat a lot of like stigma or maybe like some stereotypes along the way.
Yeah.
Now that you are as amazing as you have become in your career, could you tell us what you love about working with data and as a data science tech lead? What is it that makes you get up every day because you're like, yes, this is my career?
I think I've always been in love with like data visualization. So there is like this thing of where you come where information is beautiful. Like there's like data that just sticks a bunch of ones and zeros in a spreadsheet, and then just seeing that transform into like a nice visual, nice insights, and something that can be used and stuff. It's kind of like a very creative process. So it's not just like math and science to me. It also feels like there's a level of creativity that I'm able to use. Like I'm quite a creative person as well. I love making stuff pretty and and putting things together. So when I got into data science, like one of the projects or things I did at work was like using like network plots and network graphs, and how nice it was to see how text data can be transformed, like tons and millions of text data can be transformed into this network plot that just looks so pretty. And we entered a competition called Information is Beautiful as well, with one of the innovation managers. So that for me is really cool, and getting people to understand how they can transform information into something that could be useful and drive insights, and also let you explore yourself. Like you can actually go into exploring, like stakeholders can go into exploring those network plots or the graphs or the dashboards that you produce using data science, using text mining, using unsupervised learning, and the promise of like machine learning as well, like I'm talking like machine learning terms, but like supervised, unsupervised, assuming my audience will understand. But there is also like machine learning itself has had, like if you look at a project, like I come from Malawi, which is like a very disadvantaged community. There's a lot of applications in like how to improve and scale agriculture and food, and lots of social data science for social good, machine learning for social good, that's really empowers you and inspires you that, hey, you can actually create your own projects outside of your workspace as well. You can be part of open source communities involved in making change. So it's not just about your 9 to 5, but it's also about getting involved in hobbies and things outside of work that you can use. And it's a skill that I believe you can, if you have it, it's not just something you can apply in your 9 to 5, but it's something you can apply in your day to day, something you can apply to do your own thing later on in the future. So it just feels like a very solid type of skill sets that's worthwhile for an individual as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you used so many terminologies that just go straight over my head.
Yeah.
But every time you said machine learning, I was like, yeah, I'm there. I get it. I'm with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, but
That,
it's all machine learning. So there's just like different methodologies. Like one is more like exploratory and the other one is more like prediction. So the
right.
exploratory part allows you to kind of like really make something out of data and discover new things in data that you didn't know before. And the prediction sort of really helps with like that social aspect I was talking about, like predicting like rainfall, predicting droughts, to help with like planning for resources for certain scarce periods of time. So that's another cool aspect of applying ML.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really interesting, actually, because I think there are so many industries that utilize data science. Like you see it everywhere. Or if you're ever looking at jobs, you'll see that they're often required. It's something that's often advertised.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think because you're looking at it as like a career perspective, you forget the social impact it will also have, as well as economic. So that's really cool that you guys can do stuff like that with looking at environments and predicting things that would help with agriculture and resources. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It was clear though the way that you absolutely adore what you do, which is so nice to see. I love when people really enjoy their job and they found their like niche. One thing that we've noticed throughout doing this series is that the STEM field is very intertwined. So you have so many like industries that are overlapping. Of course, there's science and technology and so many different comparatives. So how do you think that technology that has evolved over recent years has evolved the learnings that you're able to find and explore as a data scientist and a tech lead?
I think it's really changed a lot. Like before, when I studied a STEM field, and we were really focused on Excel. But now, when I look at the degree that I enrolled in now, it's really focused on R and Python and getting people those skills. So it's kind of like adapting to the new world of open source technologies, and it's more like access to big data. We've got more access to information on the internet now that we can use to explore. We've got access to like communities, I think like Kaggle and other spaces as well. And it's really changed how degrees and certain courses are also being like presented. There's a lot of more online material, a lot of more online courses, a lot of learning that you could do, whether you studied like any STEM field. Let's say you studied like biology and you wanted to get into programming and you wanted to explore like data science for biology. You could just have your STEM degree and then use like the resources online. R is free, Python is free, a lot of the cloud stuff is initially free. You just have to make sure that you monitor your cost and don't give your credit card information. But it allows people who are from other STEM backgrounds to easily get these technologies, teach themselves how to code, how to program, and enhance their own career, like their own niche, their own like domain. Like if you're in biology, you can enhance your own domain, or if you're in working as a nutritionist as well, you can find ways to use data on your own in your own organization and how to make something more useful of it without having to go and study data science or computer science and stuff. So I think that definitely the technology landscape's changed a lot. The cloud platforms changed a lot. There is a lot more demand in careers with people knowing how to use data, because even like some product manager roles as well want you to learn SQL, want you to have a little bit of Python. So every role, I think, is really evolving as these technologies came into place, and we're able to realize much more like value from data because of these technologies. So if you don't want to get left behind in your STEM field, whether you're a mechanical engineer, whether you're industrial engineer, a chemical engineer, it's really becoming necessary to get at least some level of knowledge and use of these applications. So yeah, it's changed a lot of things, and I think it's still gonna be really evolving. Like now, it's also more automation is coming in. So there's a lot of talk now about automating the data science field and things like that, automating this other field, and people are sort of like wondering, like, getting scared about what should I study now because my field might be redundant later on.
Yeah, I get that fear. I think because of how fast technology has evolved over recent years, I think there are big visions for what it'll be able to do. But I think at the end of the day, people are still going to need people to overlook that.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. So there was actually a study online this year in April, I believe, by a company called Zapier, and it revealed that only 20% of data scientists are represented by women or people who identify as women, and 80%, of course, would there be men or those who identify as male. So do you think that there are specific areas in the scientific space and community that would benefit from a stronger presence of women? And why do you think that area, the area of data science, is lacking a female presence at the moment?
I think almost every area would benefit from women. Yeah, specifically, I guess, because data science and in STEM fields, we're so little. I think it will benefit from women, especially like I speak about. I was reading a book called Data Feminism, and also about, I think now that I'm a mom, about data and information about like women and maternity and all of these issues that we face are a little bit more personal or close to us. And when I read this book, it says that the reason why, like you would read that there is no evidence in the study that shows that there's a link between, let's say, for example, like only recently people have realized that breastfeeding is amazing and it's good for your kid. It's only like because women who've entered the STEM fields have now dedicated time to do research in these types of areas, right? Without that, men will not be interested in really understanding that type of like data, and it won't be personal to them. So these types of like personal studies, and we need that need attention. The only way they can really get attention is if we have more women working in tech and who are going to be passionate about looking into these types of research. Otherwise, everything comes up always saying that there's not enough data, there's not enough studies to show that there's a link between this and that. Even like with women's health, there's not a lot of research in that because we don't have a lot of women in these STEM fields and a lot of women in science or women in data looking at those types of analysis. So that shows that we can create a better world if we have more people doing these studies, or even like in disadvantaged communities where a lot of studies you find will also say a US study showed this, right? It won't say like we studied people living in Kenya or people living in the Philippines and to check what they're like, the link between like mortality rates during birth, just an example like that, and the economy and those things like that. So those things don't exist. Those statistics don't exist. We don't know anything of that. And that's also because there's even less women in those countries doing STEM fields or doing data and analysis. So we do need more women to be empowered. We do need more organizations identifying like research areas that really impact those types of research areas that could be useful, and not just research areas that are focusing on like self-driving cars. Like there's and someone who said, I remember attended a conference with a woman who was also very passionate about having more women in STEM fields, and she's like, yeah, everything that we go to in conferences is always about the metaverse. There's nothing that can really engage young women or women to actually want to enter tech. There's also like, another example was when a young girl found out like something like makeup is chemistry, like your lipstick is chemistry. There's data involved in the beauty industry that you could also be involved in and stuff. And when you attend these tech conferences or communities, even though there are women presenting, like that's a nice thing to see women presenting. But there's also topics that could engage young women to want to study these fields because these topics will be more interesting to them and they'll be more personal to them. And I think that's what really gets people to want to do something. Like in mechanical engineering, men want to do that, or some people want to do that because like they love planes, they love cars, they love, even with civil engineering, you love structures, you love all of these stuff. So it's nice to show girls that there are other applications of tech and data science that can be more like closer to their hobbies that they enjoy. So that's, I think, is a quite important to get women into the field, and we need more women in the field because we need more research that's closer to the interests of women.
That, I think you literally put that together absolutely amazingly. Thank you. It's so true. I couldn't agree with you more, especially things like how you mentioned towards the end about girls and women seeing that science and data is needed, even in industries that don't necessarily promote it, like cosmetics.
Yeah.
And probably even in things like clothing brands and things like that, the right materials. And there is so much that is behind the scenes that isn't shown, which we need to start bringing into light, because I think people would be far more interested. There are women out there and girls out there who adore wearing makeup.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's their only interest. They may be amazing at maths or amazing at science, and they may want to combine that. And I think you're exactly right. Showcasing those opportunities and how you can find an interest and use your skills at the same time for something that you're passionate about is definitely something you can do. So thank you again, that you put that together in the most amazing way. It actually brings us on really, really nicely to my last question, which is, so you briefly did touch on it, but how do you think that STEM companies can get more girls and women excited about finding their career in data? So I know you've already mentioned about showcasing the fact that it can also relate to your own personal interests, but what else do you think they can do?
I think there's also like probably when you hire women, especially like on a graduate level, like you always get a lot more girls coming in from university, and it's also making sure that they have like communities inside the organization as well. Like I think I mentioned something about enterprise resource groups that like communities in the workspace with the women in tech, or like the senior women that are there as well, to not just be like, oh, we have a we have a lead information technology officer that's a female, but also getting her involved in empowering the younger females in the company and having like these types of talks, sharing journeys. I think that can really help to keep the female talent in and keep them also involved in the organization space, and stay there, because sometimes you do get like women coming in, but because they leave at a faster rate, it always like shows that there's no females there, and I think like promoting young females in these roles, like career journeys, and I find that it's quite, I don't know how to put it, but if I'm going to be straightforward, I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping in like management roles in the STEM fields and in tech, that there's not, it doesn't always feel like there's space for women in those organizations. So when younger girls come into an organization and they don't see like management that's reflective of like the junior people on the junior level, then it's like, do I actually have a space here? Can I actually stay in this organization? Can I actually grow in this space? So we also need, like, I'm in a position now where I'm a female lead, and I'm always like, we need more female leads. We need more senior females to also, like, and we need those senior females to also be passionate about being part of these resource groups and organizations to empower the younger generations, and not just be there and climbing the ladder the same way that men are climbing the ladder. But we also need to kind of be more aware of this stuff and and also kind of pay back to the community. Not everybody wants that. Like, not everybody does that. Like, not every female intake is interested in being part of those communities. And I think that's also quite one of the things, because I guess it's hard. Like, we have to deal with a lot of stuff as well. So being involved, and there's no incentive, like there's no incentive of you being an ERG lead sometimes in an organization, and maybe recognizing that as part of like your performance and part of your day-to-day would make more women also want to be involved in it. So if I'm an ERG lead right now at my organization for women in tech, but it's like, it's not visible, right? And if it's not visible, then it doesn't really motivate me to want to do a lot more. And if there's, because then it doesn't contribute to your promotion, it doesn't contribute to anything. So making those things like more visible and more valued as well, like women being involved in those communities in the workspace, that would really help. Like diversity and inclusion sometimes always just feels very hollow. It always feels like a tick box exercise, and I think that's probably one of the causes is also probably just not getting people really engaged in them. The leaders that are responsible for executing those are not that passionate or close to the problems that the organization is trying to solve. So getting people who are much closer to the problems and would actually make a difference. And yeah, that would help a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you literally just said about D&I, I think a lot of the time people have a baseline understanding of what it is, but how many people are actually asking the question of how can we actually embrace diversity and make it a more inclusive space? And that's the question that we need to start putting out there. Because I think, even as you said before, earlier, just about the fact that not every woman who is working in STEM or in data science may want to champion for other women. They may just want to do their job, and they have absolutely every right to. But I think even just them being there is also very symbolic. Yeah. Because I think, imagine if you are a young woman or even an older lady, and you walk in for a job interview, even just seeing X number of women sitting around the office, or people of color, or of different ethnicities, people that look different, people that have disabilities, you automatically feel more comfortable because you're like, okay, they
exactly. 100%. There was a young girl that I remember I was just sitting just minding my own business, and she just joined the organization, and the HR was introducing her to the team, and she says, here's the data science team. And then she just screamed and said, oh, there's a woman. She's like a very, like, the Gen Z who are kind of not afraid to just put it out there. And then like, she was so excited. And I was like thinking, okay, yeah, I guess maybe you're right. Just being there sometimes also just helps another woman feel more comfortable. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, like with this series, whilst we're asking people like you to share your incredible stories, it's not even necessarily with the cause that we want everyone to stand up and shout and cheer about the fact that they are working in STEM. But it's even if it makes an impact on somebody who's quite shy and quiet at home, and who then thinks, okay, cool, I can do this. It doesn't mean I have to, kick down the front door and be like, I'm a woman and I'm here. It doesn't mean that at all.
And it's also, I don't mean to stereotype, but it's also like I'm an introverted person as well. But I guess when it comes to topics that I care about, I speak a lot about them, and I become my extroverted nature comes out. But I think mostly people working in STEM, majority are introverted. Like they're more reserved type of personality. So yeah, being on stage talking and being boldly is not really it's not really general across like a lot of STEM people in working in tech. We love to be in our own space.
And that's perfectly okay. There is nothing wrong with that. I think as long as we are able to find something that we're passionate about and we're giving room to other
Yes.
younger generations and maybe people who've already been in a career but not ever thought that they had the opportunity to look into STEM. If you choose to then change your career and go and sit quietly in the corner as a data scientist or whatever it may be, that is perfectly okay. But it's just about the fact that we now need to give women the room to have that opportunity, have that knowledge, ask questions without feeling like it's silly, without feeling that they're being over dominated. And I think you, along with every other female contributor in this series, are an immaculate example and inspiration for other people. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. I really do appreciate it.
Same. I really enjoy these conversations. So thank you for having me.
Oh, of course, so do I. I absolutely adore them. And it's been really, really interesting because I myself don't know anyone that's in data science. So it's really interesting hearing about the different industries you've worked in, how it applies to different things. It's clearly a very powerful job role to have because it makes such a big difference on so many different socioeconomic and probably even political stances
Yeah.
across the world. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.